Good morning, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold, Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So lots of great stuff to go over this week. I love talking about what's going on in the market and different people that I'm working with in regards to, what's going on with them in regards to their wins and sometimes the pitfalls that we go through. But, I just really think that it's important that you know that whatever you want to do in real estate, I believe it's possible. We just have to figure out the way to make it happen. And we usually do. We don't have any trouble doing that. It's like some things are definitely beyond our control. But when you plan right, you look at it, you figure out what you can do, then that's absolutely awesome. And I'm going to get into the stats here in a minute, but I was talking to a couple that bought a home from me, I think it was about in 2020, and they actually had to wait a while to buy their house because they had one late payment on their car. Something happened that the automatic payment didn't happen or something like that. And so they had one late. So the lender that we were working with suggested that they wait until it was a year out where there had been no lates. So they were very careful, made sure that that didn't happen and everything. And they bought their house then, right. It was really when the pandemic was going on. We had just been under contract before everything was kind of shut down and all of that. And I remember because she worked at one of the hotels and he worked in security at the hotel. So the security was definitely working, but, everybody else was kind of in a flux period where nothing was going on at the moment, but they were able to purchase their home. They've got really good, equity in it now because after that point in time, the market went up and they just said, hey, we're getting our house paid off. It's going to be paid off here in the next few months. And so now we're ready to actually invest. And we want either a duplex or a fourplex or something like that we can actually, make money on and build wealth on. And I'm like, yeah, of course, absolutely. I'm here to help and everything like that. And, I've worked with them throughout the years in different things with different people and everything. So we've kept in touch and all of that, which is what I like to do with all of the people that I work with to make sure that their real estate needs are definitely, what they need to be. And that's absolutely great. And I always measure, I tell everybody that about 40% of the properties that we sell are from people that we've worked with in the past. And to me, that's a good judgment. We're always getting new people, obviously. But if we can work with that many people that we worked with before, then they know that we did a really good job. Because I think that the stat is somewhere around 79% of the people do not go back with the person that they worked with before. And so to me, that's really sad. So I don't like to see that. And obviously that's not our situation. So we like to do that. But I need to get to the stats here and tell you kind of what's going on. This went until January 31st, which was the last day of the month. So the number was up a little bit. January is our lowest month of sales usually, but there were 357 in that last week. That was 279 the week before. The median price actually went back up to 420,000. It was right below 300. Below 400 for the first time in, I don't know, I can't even remember when. So that was, I thought that was probably an outlier, and it definitely looks like it was. And the inventory decreased by 23, which still makes it pretty high in regards to what's going on. Basically, we are at 5.28 months of inventory overall, but that's not what it is in all categories and definitely all neighborhoods and everything like that. So basically, of those 357 houses, there were 45 of them under 250, 30 between 250 and 300, 86 between 300 and 400, 68 between 400 and 500. There were 108 between 500 and a million, and then there were 20 over a million. So, kind of spread out over there. Now, the under 250 and the over a million usually don't sell too close to asking price, and it's not any different here. They were at 94.2 under 250 and 95.31 over a million. And then everywhere else was in the 96.5, 97, 96.8. So, it's there was a little bit more room there this week than there usually is. But the months of inventory, like I mentioned, is at 5.28, which is considered a normal market. It'll be interesting to see where we're at in February, because there's usually the market kind of picks up again in February, and then we stay that way all the way to September, to when school gets back in session. And, it goes back in session in August, but people are getting used to the new procedures and everything that's going on. And so the month of September is a little bit low as well. So basically 5.28 overall, but under 250, there's 3.28 months of inventory. Between 250 and 300, it's 4.01. 4.58 between 300 and 400, 5.62 between 500 and a million. And then we're looking at 6 months, right at 6 months between 500 and a million. And then a million, over a million, we're looking at 9.57, which just means it's a little bit heavy on the high side in regards to what's going on with our inventory in the single family homes. So when you're looking at condos, townhomes, and villas, there were a total of 95 that were sold last week versus 77 the week before. And the price is at $244 for condos, townhomes, and villas, the median, versus $420 for single family homes. The number of the inventory decreased by 90, which is really good, because that inventory does need to decrease, because I'll tell you right now kind of what's going on with that market. Okay, so basically when it comes down to it, we're looking at that the months of inventory that we have overall is 9.95. So almost 10 months of inventory. Under 250, we're at 7.76. And then we go to 8.76. Between 300 and 400, we're looking at 13.79 months of inventory. Then we go to 14.22 for 500 to 400 to 500, and then 500 to a million, we're at 15.64. None of them sold over a million, but there's 25 on the market, and there wasn't any that sold last week either. So basically, when you're looking at that, it's like if you're a seller and you're selling a condo, or if you're a buyer and you're buying a condo, you definitely need to look at what's going on in that particular condo development, what's happening with it, and basically, adjust accordingly. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were saying, well, my house is far superior and all of that kind of stuff, to all the other ones that were in the neighborhood. But as I explained to them, they're all the same floor plan. They were all built in the same year. So it might be that you've done some stuff and your home will sell faster, but you've got to look at what an appraiser is going to do. And they're going to give you some for the improvements that you made, but they're not going to give you 100% for all the improvements that you made. And we go through, probably about every couple months, where we go through, when you do X thing to your house, the return on investment that you're going to get for it. And you're never usually going to get 100%. Maybe in painting or something like that, you're going to get close to 100%, but most of the time you don't. But some things you've got to realize that if you don't fix them, that you're not going to get anybody that's going to offer on your property at all. And it's going to be something that they're not interested in. And so you definitely want to make sure that you're doing what you need to do to put your best foot forward. Now, if you say, hey, I don't want to do that, Laura, well, guess what? We've got some options for you today that you can absolutely, have another company do that for you. And that's going to give you, more money in your pocket long term. You're not going to have to deal with it. or we have cash offers and people that'll come in and do it. They give you the majority of your money, like 80 to 90% of it right away, and then that last 10% when they sell it for a second time. So there's a lot of options, and I know I'm kind of talking fast and talking about things that aren't normal. So you're going, what the heck is that? Well, the best thing for you to do is just get in touch with me, and I'm more than happy to go over it. And in order to get in touch with me, my number is 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll be back after the break. Welcome back, everybody. This is Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm Laura Peterson, your host, and I'm from Your Home Sold, Guaranteed Realty. And to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I was talking about in the last segment that I was kind of talking about, your house and how it stands up and all of that kind of good stuff and all of the options that are out there for you today. You can put it on the market as a regular sale, and that's no problem at all. Like you've known probably for your whole life. But then there are other options and everything out there. So just think of like a car when you're going to buy a car. When you're doing that, you have an option that you can sell your car outright to somebody, or you can go ahead and when you're going to many of the new car dealers, you can take your car into it and they'll take care of everything for you. And so basically we have those kinds of systems in the housing market today that you can kind of do the same thing. So it gives sellers a lot of options in regards to what to do. But one of the things that I was talking about, and I ran into a house this week that I'm working with somebody on, and they did the inspection and they found that there had been termites in the house in the past, and there is a lot of wood rot, on the exterior of the home. It looks like they might have to, maybe not replace the French doors, but they're definitely going to need to do all around the French doors and how that all works. And so basically we're going through the process to figure out if we're going to be able to come to a meeting of the minds on that. It is an as-is contract that we're working with, and the buyer is a first-time buyer, so they're very concerned that, it could be way over their head in regards to what they need to do. And there was termite damage. We don't know when it was done, but we had 2 wood-destroying organism inspections on it that confirmed that there definitely was, and they showed where it was. There was actually still wings and everything from the termites. So it wasn't looking like anything was active now, but there definitely has been activity, and they have, done some damage to the house. So the house, unfortunately, does not have a termite bond. And so as a result of that, the buyer, when he put his offer in on that house, didn't expect this to come up. And so basically in the future, when the seller goes to get another offer, if we can't come to a meeting of the minds here, then he's going to, deal with the same thing, because he's not going to have this inspection, but somebody else is going to do an inspection and find the same things, because it's quite obvious when you look in those things that you don't look at when you're looking at houses, where you go around and you see all of the little things. I mean, there's a lot of pictures. So we're trying to resolve it, and I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to. But basically, what we need to do is that we've got a contractor going out there to actually tell us the amount that it would cost to get it done. So are we talking about, $5,000? Or are we talking about $20,000 or $50,000? We don't know. So instead of guessing, we're actually taking the time to actually go there and figure out what the number is, and then it'll be something that we'll either be able to work it out or we won't. Now, my stats are in the neighborhood of about 97 or 98%. It's between 97 and 98% of the properties that I put under contract actually close. The board average is at about 40. So, when it comes down to it, I'm committed to making this happen if it absolutely can. So, it's like when you're talking to the seller, obviously, like I said, this is a situation that they didn't know existed, but it obviously does. And anytime anybody does an inspection on that property, that's what they're going to find. I was talking to another seller earlier, and there was a problem with the roof that and this was in a townhouse that the homeowners association takes care of. And some time went by and the homeowners association hadn't done anything. And I'm like saying, hey, this is not a new situation, and that the buyer is going to have a problem with it. So we need to get on it and make sure that the homeowners association does what they need to do. And absolutely, that's kind of what the situation is, that, any buyer that comes through there, 99% of them do an inspection. And so with them doing an inspection, they're going to find this stuff. And the only people that I've worked with that haven't done an inspection were investors, and they just didn't pay for an inspection. They did their own inspection. They came in there, they went up in the attic, they walked around, they looked at all of the wood rot that was there to see if anything was going on. And if they did have questions about it, then they did hire somebody to actually find it out. They would turn on the water, turn on the stoves, do a lot of stuff that the inspectors do. But they're used to buying a lot of property. And so as a result of that, that's absolutely, what they did and what they do. So we'll find out what's going to happen. You'll have to tune in next week and see. But we're in process. And the thing that I guess I want to say to everybody out there is that, in my opinion, you can work through all of the situations for the most part in regards to what's going on. There's a few things that you can't. I ran into something in December that I just didn't know how to deal with it. It was a cash buyer buying a property that I was working with the seller on. And the day, it was actually hours before the seller was signing the documents, and they were moving the next day. And the buyer just said, "I'm not buying, and you can have my deposit." And that was it. There was no rhyme or reason. There was nothing. It was just they changed their mind, and they decided that they would rather lose $5,000 than buy that house. So when they have that kind of attitude and that happens, I mean, there's nothing that you can do. And so basically, actually they got $10,000 from that buyer. But, that's about all that you can do. It was very disheartening and everything like that. But, that was one that was totally beyond my control. I did talk to the realtor and say, hey, what's it going to take for them to do it? And they just said, no, he just doesn't want to do it, and we can't change his mind, and that's it. And so you're just like, well, that doesn't make sense. And, they gave up quite a bit of money to be able to walk away, but that was the situation and what they did. So I'm not going to be able to save all of them, but I do save most of them, is what my point is. And so when it comes down to it, you really have to look at where you are and what you want to do and what your goals are in regards to, housing and all of that kind of stuff. And we are more than happy to help you with whatever things that you've got going on and that you're looking to getting done. And so, like I said, it's like, it's very fun, working with people. It can be very stressful when you're going through these kinds of things, because is it going to work out or isn't it? Honestly, I don't know. It just depends on how open-minded the seller is to these situations. And, I'll tell you about another one in the next segment. But in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. To discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. 2555. That's 407 566 2555. So I wanted to definitely talk about today the homestead exemption. And I think that if you own a house in Central Florida, you're a Florida resident, and you own the house that you live in, you need to make sure that you have the homestead. And you have to apply for it before March 1st. So we are already February 8th. So this is definitely the time to check it out. So if you owned your house before December 31st of 2025, you qualify, and you're a Florida resident and you live in the house. And so you can go to your county and you can actually apply for the homestead exemption. Now, I was talking to somebody, a couple of years ago, and I didn't sell them their house, but they were saying, hey, our housing cost has just gone up so high and everything like that. And I said, really? It should have stayed the same because I think you got a 30-year fixed loan, didn't you? And they said, yeah. And they said, but our taxes are really going up high. And I said, oh, well, that's your problem, that you need to apply for homestead. And I looked up their house, and sure enough, they hadn't applied for homestead. So, and what homestead does is that it kind of freezes the property tax, not really, but it makes it so they go up very tiny amounts every year. And so as the market increases significantly, then your taxes kind of stay the same and your payment stays the same. And so there's actually some things that we're looking forward to in the legislature that I know hasn't been approved yet, but I know that they're working on it to potentially get rid of property taxes and at least to reduce them on homesteaded properties that are homesteaded by people who are Floridians who are living in the house that they own. And so definitely, you definitely want to make sure that you take care of this sooner than later right now, because time is running out. And so basically, when it comes down to it, you get the first deduction of 50,000 of the value. So that ends up saving you, quite a bit right off the bat. Usually it's around, 500 to 750, maybe even 1,000, depending on where you're at. And so that's basically what it is. It removes 25,000 from the assessed value for all taxing authorities, an additional 25,000 adjusted, that applies to the assessed value between 50 and 75,000, and excluding school district taxes. So that basically it triggers the Save Our Homes assessment limitation, which caps annual increases in the assessed value to 3%, or the percentage change in the consumer price index, whichever is lower. And so applications can be filed online or in person with the county property appraiser's office. Required documents usually include a Florida driver's license, vehicle registration, and voter registration. So the deadline for the exemption is March 1st of the tax year. So we pay taxes in arrears, so you have to have applied by March 1st. So you might be able to port some of your Save Our Homes benefit to a new Florida home. And what I always suggest for people when that happens, that you want to do that, you have to call the county directly and tell them the house that you're in and the house that you're moving to, because those are very complicated, calculations. They might have it in a computer, which I'm sure they do, but I don't know. It's not just like a simple equation to figure that out. So after the initial approval, the exemption generally renews automatically each year. And so if you rent out the home, it can jeopardize the exemption. So you definitely want to make sure that you check it, that you see what's going on in your particular property, and if you actually have that. And so you've got a couple, 3 weeks to get it done. It's, usually you can, get your voters registration, pretty easily. I remember when I did it a long time ago, basically, it's like I did the driver's license, the vehicle registration and the voter's registration all on one full swoop and all of that kind of stuff. Now, in the past, you used to have to show your closing statement or, your deed or something like that. This isn't saying that you still need to do that. I think that they can see if it's recorded, if it's in your name, but they want to make sure that you're a Florida resident, meaning that you've got your driver's license that matches the new address, that you've got, your tags on your car and your voter registration. So then they know that, hey, you're committed to that new address, and that's what they're looking for. And it does save you quite a bit of money. And so even in the first year and then every year thereafter that you're in that home. So it definitely makes sense to do it. And they're looking at even making it a bigger benefit in the future if it gets through the legislature, which I'm not sure that it will or won't. But I know that right now it does have a great value, and so you don't want to miss it. And so, again, that is Florida's homestead exemption. That is a substantial property tax benefit, reducing the assessed value of a primary residence up to $50,000 with potential for higher adjusted amounts in 2025 and capping annual assessments increases at 3%. So permanent residents owning property as of January 1st must apply with their local property appraiser by March 1st. So we're getting there. It's February 8th today, so you definitely want to look at it. And you can actually call the property appraiser and see if you've got that homestead exemption. You can usually look it up on there. If you go to the property appraiser and you pull up your tax records, it will show if you've got that homestead exemption. And if you've lived there, and you didn't have it, it's time to apply for it so that you've got it in the future. And that's what I had told the people that had come to me and that were telling me about the way that their taxes had increased. And so when they had actually, I think, tripled from when they had originally bought it because they never did it. And it was about 5 years and the market had gone crazy. And so they had just, kept getting property tax increases. And so you can't go backwards and say, hey, I bought this 5 years ago. Can we go back to that level? And you cannot do that. So you definitely want to make sure that you do that. And anytime that you change ownership, I know somebody was talking about that they were going to take the house from their name and put it in a trust. And I said, before I do that, what I would do is I would call the property appraiser and tell him what you want to do, that you're not doing this to, change the ownership or anything like that, and see how it's going to affect your property taxes, because that's something that they don't necessarily tell you. And then you go, oh my goodness, if I'd have known that, I wouldn't have done this. So basically, it's like I said, it's not bad. You just want to make sure that you are definitely dotting your I's and crossing your T's. And if you do that, then you're going to find out what the bottom line is, what's happening, and what you need to do to make that decision. Because it's like you might be fine with it. You might be, hey, it's going to save me in this way, and so it's okay on the property taxes, and that's great. Whatever it is that you want to know. I just don't like surprises for people. So I like to make sure that we've done everything that we could do to make sure that you don't have any errors or any big surprises as time goes on. And so that's another reason that by the end of the year that everybody's trying to get their houses sold by December 31st, because they know that they can, and you can apply for that homestead exemption anytime. And I suggest that you do. For anybody that buys a house at any time, I suggest that you do it immediately so you don't forget. Because say you bought it in October and then, you have until March 1st and you think, oh, I've got plenty of time. Well, all of a sudden March 1st has come and gone and you forgot to do it. So I tell everybody it's time to do it right now. Don't procrastinate. Do it. Get it done, and you're going to be happy that you did. But in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold, Guaranteed Realty. And to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about, how you want to present your house. And basically, I was talking earlier in the show about how this one particular house that I'm working with this buyer, that they've got a lot of wood rot and that kind of stuff, and the house had termites, but the house is beautiful. I mean, it doesn't look like that kind of house, but when you look at it very closely on the outside and you walk around and you see all the stuff that you normally wouldn't see, you can notice it. And basically it comes down to, attention to detail and all of that kind of good stuff. So what happens on that is that many times the buyers, if they do see that, I mean, they want to run for the hills. They are just going, hey, I'm not sure that I want to go through with this. And basically, the inspector, kind of put his 2 cents in there, which is not exactly cool in regards to saying that, hey, I think that this house has a lot, which it does have a lot. But that's not the inspector's job. The inspector's job is to be, clear in regards to what's going on. And it's an opinion. It's not anything that, that he really should have an opinion on, quite honestly. Now, this buyer wants to buy this house because in that neighborhood, his in-laws live there. His friends live there. Everybody lives there, and there's not a lot of houses that go on the market. And this house is perfectly situated for where he wants to be. It's priced perfectly for what he wants to spend. It's got size perfectly for what they want. And so there's just this one little hiccup that came into the house. Now, one of the things that, when I'm working with sellers to avoid this type of situation, we do what we call a certified pre-owned home. And so that would be something that we would do that would be different, but we're not the one that's working with the seller here. We're working with the buyer. So, but basically, so it was a surprise. It's kind of a surprise to the seller as well. And yet at the same time, the seller's looking to net X amount of dollars to, kind of move on and everything like that. And what they may or may not realize is that this is going to follow them, through the whole sale process. There's no avoiding it, like I had said before. And so you've got to put your best foot forward, figuring out, what you can do, how we can make this work and everything like that. And that's what we're going to be, working on this week. So I'll be able to give you an update next week. But one of the things in putting your best foot forward is actually decluttering that improves showings. And so the number one thing that I think that you need to do is that I always tell everybody, take out your phone and your camera and take pictures of your house, and then look at the pictures and what do you see? And you're probably going to go, wow, I didn't realize I had so much stuff there. I remember a few years ago, I had some kids that were young. They were in their 20s, and they were looking for a place where they could actually, film like a short documentary kind of thing of what they were doing, and they wanted to have a house and to do it. And I said, well, I said, you can use my house if you want to. And so I didn't think anything of it. And then they came in and they said, oh, wow, well, there's a lot of stuff that we have to move. And I was like thinking, what are you talking about? Well, I was completely eye blind myself. So I did what I tell you guys to do, take pictures and look at them. And I went, okay, well, this isn't going to last. And so what I did is I went ahead and I did declutter and all of that kind of stuff, and they used the house and everything was fine. But you don't realize that it's like, oh, I'm just going to put this down or hide this under this niche because nobody's going to see it. And sure enough, they are going to see it because they don't look at it every day and are blind to it. And so you definitely have to do that in order to see what's going on. One big thing is countertops, and having them clear is absolutely necessary. And, even if you keep things on it and you're using it, day in and day out, that's okay. But the new guy who's coming in to look at your property, he needs to feel like he's got plenty of room on the countertop. And if you've got all of your stuff laying there and it's all spread out and everything like that, they're going to say, oh my gosh, there's not enough room for us to do what we need to do. There's no space to actually work on this countertop. It's great because we've got all this stuff, stacked on here, or we've got a place for everybody's keys, or we've got, the fruit bowl sitting out or whatever, and a fruit bowl is probably okay. But basically, you've got to have plenty of room for people to feel like they can do what they want to do there, and that the house doesn't feel like you don't have room to do what they want to do, because they're going to go, if they don't have room to do what they want to do, I'm not going to have room to do what I want to do. And one of the things that I think is probably a pet peeve of sellers, but it's absolutely necessary, is that if someone comes and looks at your house, they are going to open up the doors, in the cabinet doors in the kitchen, and they're going to look and see how things are going. They're going to look in that pantry and see if there's enough room for them to put their stuff. They're going to look and see if there's enough room for their dishes, for their pans, all of that kind of stuff. They're going to look because they're thinking, hey, I've got to have room for all this stuff. And I remember, I was pretty new to real estate when I did this, and there was a house that I went into, and it was, the house was a $2 million home. And so it was, it was very nice and everything like that. And basically I remember going into the master closet, and every one of the things that were hung up were exactly like an inch apart. Like there were, like the shirts, the shoes, the dresses, the everything. It was exactly like an inch apart. And basically, it's like you go into, and then I remember going to another closet that I opened up the door and almost everything fell out because they had just thrown everything on top of everybody and all of that kind of stuff. So the difference of going into that closet that had everything perfect, and I said I would never be able to keep it, exactly an inch apart, because that's not my style. But basically, it looked great, and it looked like you had plenty of space, and everything had its space, and it was just perfect for somebody imagining that they could definitely have plenty of room to put their stuff, versus the place where all of the racks and everything had fallen down in the closet, and so they had just taken everything and thrown it in there and shut the door. Well, buyers are going to open up the door because they got to look at the closet and see if they can fit their stuff in there. And so when they open it up and everything starts falling out, they go, okay, well, there's not enough storage in this house. And it emphasizes that, as opposed to, being something that they're not really thinking about. If you go into the closet and it's nice and you got plenty of space, and even if you go into a closet where, it's got boxes because they're getting ready to move and all of that kind of stuff, but they've got their household items somewhere else and all of that kind of stuff, it's definitely huge for what they want to, what people want to accomplish, that they go, oh, well, there's plenty of storage here. It's like you don't even have to put stuff up in the attic. You've got plenty of closet space to do all that. And it does make a difference in whether your house stands out to the point where a buyer's going to buy it. So you definitely have to be concerned about that. And they're going to look in your junk drawers. They're going to look at everything. And they're not going to take anything, but they are going to look, because they're looking at it for how is their stuff going to be in it. And if you can't keep it straight when you're in that house, then they're going to be going, how in the world can I keep it straight? Some people can get beyond that, but a lot of people can't. And so why take the chance? Why take the chance that you could lose a sale because of something like that going on? So when it comes down to it, you want to make sure that your house is ready to go on the market. But like I said earlier in the show, there are definite opportunities and everything out there for everybody today, that you don't have to do that you have options, that you can, just like a car, drive it into the dealer, drop it off, and you're done. That you can almost do today with a house in many ways, and we help you do it. So if you have questions, just give us a call, and I'm out of time today, so I'm going to let y'all go, but I look forward to talking to you next week. In order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you next week. Have a great one, everybody. Bye-bye.